Awesome. Well, welcome to Blue Ridge Community Church. For those that are new here, my name is Jeremy. I'm one of the teachers and pastors here at Blue Ridge. Now, normally I would give you a context for why we do what we do and all of that and what you see here, but really that's what today is all about. So here, I'm going to skip all that. We're going to get to that here today, but what I'm going to ask you to do is here in a moment, I'm going to ask everyone to stand, and we're going to look around and we're going to look for people to meet, greet, say hey to, welcome, that kind of stuff. But if you're a Blue Ridger, you know what to do in this moment, that we know that tables just work better on a Sunday morning if there's at least 4 people at every table. So if there's enough room to invite someone else to your table, do it. If there's not, if you're a Blue Ridger, would you go and join another group if they're, just to give everyone the best possible experience here as we gather together. So get everyone to stand up. You're gonna look out. You're gonna take the next couple minutes to say hey to one another. Go for it, guys.
Sermon at Gail's funeral was a blessing. I wish that the bishop behind you that was asleep, she could have.
Awesome, everyone. I love that it gets harder and harder to corral you guys. So while you guys are finding your seat, if you wouldn't mind grabbing a card from the center, even if you think everybody at your table knows you, they may have forgotten your name, write your name on it, fold it in half, and put it out as kind of a way for people to see your name, and so they don't have to try and remember it there. For those of you who are watching online, welcome. Introduce yourself to the chat below. We are glad that you're joining us the way that you are. So, like I said, while you guys are doing that, while you guys are writing your names down, while you guys are getting situated, you know, today is really all about context to who we are as a church, why we do what we do, and hopefully help bring some clarity to where we've been and where we feel like God is taking us. You see, if you have been here at Blue Ridge for a while, you obviously, my guess is the church you started coming to is very different than the church you're now attending in that. And you've seen these changes, and while we've introduced terms along the way and tried to kind of lay out what's been happening, we know that there are questions, even if you've been along the whole journey with us, of going, okay, so remind me once again where we're going, remind me once again why it is we feel like these changes needed to take place. And what does the future look like, and what is my part in that future? And maybe you're new here and we love that, and you're investigating this and you look around and you go, this is different. And so we want to give you a context, you know, about who we are as a church, and in the same way invite you into the part that God may have for you. Because at the end of the day, this is what I would love. I would love for God at the end of the day to be able to kind of bring a little bit more clarity to the journey that we're on collectively together, along with each one of us seeing what is the part, what is the role? What may God be inviting me to do as a result of where he's taking us collectively as a church? So that's the hope, that's the dream for today as we walk through this. So I want to begin today by asking this question. What brought you to Blue Ridge? At your table, like, go around, just think around the circumstances, the ways, the events that brought you here. Now, you're only gonna have 3 minutes. There's no way gonna be for everyone to get around. But I would say be as brief as you can, but to go around so as many people get to go and share what were the circumstances, the people, the events, the life stage surrounding what brought you originally here to Blue Ridge, okay? I'm gonna give you 3 minutes at your tables. Go for it, guys. Awesome. Well, hopefully a couple of you could at least share at every table what originally brought you here. For me, what the circumstances that originally brought me here had to deal with actually where I first lived when I moved to Lynchburg. You see, I rented this basement apartment from a couple who had recently come to Christ and been baptized here at Blue Ridge. And so we moved here in 2000. And so I was on the phone with these future landlords of mine talking about the details of leasing their basement apartment. And they shared with me how they'd recently come to Christ. So they said, when you guys moved here in January of 2000, when you guys moved here, you guys should try out Blue Ridge. And so when we got here in 2000, our very first week, that's what we did. We checked out Blue Ridge. At the time, Blue Ridge was meeting in Lynchburg at Lincoln Middle School in the cafeteria there. You moved everything in, moved everything out, the kind of deal. We showed up. It's very different than what it is even today in a lot of different ways. And I just remember that first week, God really ambushed both Jan and I with what he was doing in and through Blue Ridge. Several things that just resonated with inside of us. The first one was Woody's heart. Just his heart and desire, his authenticity. You saw that he wasn't standing up here saying, hey, I've got it all together and I've got it all figured out. It was actually, hey, I'm on this journey and I'm inviting you to go on this journey and we'll figure this out together. The other thing for us that was this whole missional mindset that's reaching people that are yet to follow Jesus, because myself and Jana had been involved in Young Life for years. And so Young Life, if you're not aware, it's a parachurch organization that reaches out to teenagers that would most likely not show up to a church on a Sunday morning. And so because of that, this whole missional mindset of reaching people that no one else is reaching, that really resonated deep inside of us, which it brings me to kind of the third thing. And what I loved was, and what resonated with me was the non-traditional approach. You see, in Young Life, what I appreciated was that Young Life was willing to kind of move away from the way churches had operated to reach people, to try other things that no one else was doing to reach people no one else is reaching. And I saw that same spirit, that same heart at work within Blue Ridge. And so we really felt like this resonated deeply, but we also had this skepticism in the sense that there's no way we found the church for us week one. And so full disclosure, next week we went to another church and it was fine. It was great. It was a good church. And we looked at each other and we went, you know what? It's great and everything, but really we believe the church that God has for us is Blue Ridge Community Church. And we've been here for the last 23 years. And I'm telling you, over the last 23 years of being involved, there is literally, I can't think of an area of my life that has not been affected by what has happened in and through these walls in this place, this community of faith, Blue Ridge Community Church. I think about the leaders and the mentors that have poured into me over the last 2 decades and all that's meant to help me become the follower of Jesus that I am today and the continued growth there. I think about the friends and the peers. I mean, friendships that are now decades old, that we've been growing up since we were in our early 20s together, that our families have kind of evolved together, that we've done life naturally together, that we've done ministry and served and birthed ministries collectively together, and the effect that has had, the longevity of all of that has changed and transformed who Janet and I affected every area. I think about the really countless names and faces I can think of where in large and small ways God has allowed me to be a part of people stepping into a relationship with Jesus, being baptized in their lives, transformed and changed. I think about my own dad. My parents, they live out in Colorado, but in 2010, they were out visiting here, and my dad wasn't yet a follower of Jesus, and through a message that Woody gave, and then the opportunity here at our New London campus, as everybody got up and left, he remained, and helping my dad step into a relationship with Jesus. And then a year later, a group of us, including Woody and Nan, were out in Colorado backpacking, and we got the opportunity to baptize my dad in a river out there, and I'm watching my dad a decade plus later still follow hard after Jesus. I just look at every area of my life and I see the effects of how God has used Blue Ridge Community Church with me and my wife, in our family, and in our friends. And so to say that I have loved this church, to say that I have loved the way that we have been the church and the way that we do church would be an understatement. Would be a huge understatement. That said, in around 2015, 2016, Woody started saying something. He was just saying it in small pockets, primarily with us elders and with our senior leadership. This phrase was coming up pretty regularly inside around 2015, 2016. And this was the phrase. It says, what got us here won't get us there. And this phrase, what got us here won't get us there, in it he was referencing as good as what we have all experienced over the last several decades, as much as we have watched God work in and through the way that we have done church, the reality is the culture around us is changing. And what he was stating in all of this was not that our message needs to change. The message of the good news of Jesus, it always remains the same and consistent. But the methods in which we help people follow Jesus, those have to adapt, those have to change. Now, all honesty, guys, as he was saying these things, I would, what got us here won't get us there, as I would look at this, I would think, yeah, okay, I see that, I believe that at one level, but I had a hard time embracing it. Because I think, like many of us, I had a hard time thinking that what was so impactful to me and what had meant so much to me and my family, and I'd watch God work through, wouldn't work as well with maybe someone else or in the future with other people. And as I started to wrestle with this, I started to look around and really go, the culture is changing. The culture that was surrounded us when we moved here in 2000 is vastly different than the culture and our lives today. In fact, here's what I want you to do. I want you to do this at your table. I want one person at your table, just grab out, you're just gonna write down, you're gonna do a brainstorming session here for me. So you're just gonna do it for a couple minutes. So one person grab a card from the center and you're just gonna write down what everybody brainstorms. I want you to answer this question. I want you to answer this. Brainstorm a list of things we now have that weren't around in 2000. Okay, now some of you are like, I wasn't around in 2000. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. You can think even in the last 14, 15 years, things that we have today that we didn't have or didn't interact with. Think about things like, again, I look at this, I got this iPhone. Okay, not around in 2000. Think about things like Gmail. And I realize a lot of these things, I don't want you to describe any type of morality or anything to this, just things that we have today that weren't around in 2000 or whenever you joined us on this earth, okay? If it's been after 2000, awesome. Take 2 minutes, just brainstorm as a table. Just go around and see how much stuff you can come up with. Go for it. Okay. So I did my own list this week. These are some of the things you may or may not have. Just quickly, this is what I saw. Things that didn't exist in 2000 when I moved here. I think immediately social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. Not just iPhones, but the Android format, the iPads, Tesla, WhatsApp, Bitcoin, Netflix, DoorDash, Messenger, Zoom, FaceTime, Google Maps, Amazon Prime, Airbnb, Uber, Spotify, Wi-Fi and Starbucks. That didn't come till 2002. High-speed data on phones, crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter, digital cash sharing platforms like Venmo. And now, even this year, as we think about we're now entering into this age of super-powered AI, like things like ChatGPT that's just changing things. And it isn't gonna go away, and we're gonna be interacting with more and more as the years go by. And that's just a small amount, right? And that stuff deals with technology and innovation, probably largely where our minds went in the space, but it's not just that stuff. It's not just that stuff that's changed since I moved here in 2000. It's largely the culture and the way the culture relates to the church and the message of Jesus around us. In fact, look at some statistics with me. I was born in 1977, so around that time, Americans who self-identified as Protestant Christians was the majority, around at 60%. Fast forward to when I moved here in 2000, still holding strong at 52%, okay? Just an 8% drop. Fast forward to 2022, 34%. 18% drop in the last 23 years. In fact, the fastest growing population in this study over the last time is Americans who self-identify as no religious affiliation. In 8% in 2000, 21% today. You go beyond that, you go, those who have a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in church or organized religion. When I was born in 77, it was at 64%. 4% off the all-time high of 68% when they first started tracking these things. Fast forward to 2020, still holding strong, 56%, just down 8% in that 23 years. Move to 2023, 32%. Nearly a 25% drop in the last 23 years. You move a guy's book, Tom Rainer, The Unchurched. He's heavily quoted all over the place from this book. His book was written in 2003, and the statistic he quoted from a study at that time, around that time, said that 82% of unchurched people would at least be somewhat likely to attend a church service if asked by a trusted friend. Like that was a well-accepted statistic at the time. Fast forward to a study recently done through Gallup, shows that those interested in receiving invitations to any church or faith environment has dropped to 27%. Now let's just put that in context a little bit. This is what when you compare these two, in 2003, about 82% of people would at least be somewhat likely to entertain the idea of attending a church service if a trusted friend asked them. Now 73% of people in 2020 didn't even want an invitation. You move to the last one here. Americans who rate honesty and ethical standards of clergy or pastors, people like me, as high or very high. In 2000, it was 60%. Again, pretty strong. 2021, 36%. And we can point to all the reasons why and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is, when we put this into context, our culture around us is changing drastically from what it was just a couple of decades ago. Like think about this. When I moved here in 2000, the vast majority of people in our culture, a majority of Americans would identify as Protestant Christians. The majority would trusted organized religion or the church. The vast majority would have at least entertained an invitation to a church service if asked by a friend, a trusted friend. And the vast majority trusted pastors and clergy. Majority did. And now all of those have flip-flopped to the minority. All of those have flip-flopped to the minority. Now, there's no denying us the fact that we live in the Bible Belt, and so these statistics will lag a little bit. But I think about your own perception of organized religion. Think about your own perception of pastors and leadership. Think about your own perception, and then start to think about the unchurched around you and your friends and the likelihood of what it was just a couple decades ago if you invited them to the likelihood now. And I think all of us can admit at some level, we see that trend. What he said, what got us here won't get us there. I believe that more today than I've ever believed it. What got us here won't get us there. So what are we supposed to do with all of those things? What are we supposed to do with the fact that the culture has shifted and changed, that the church, the culture and the stuff that I stepped into in the early 2000s is vastly different? That our model of, at the time, what many people called a come and see type of model. What I mean by come and see is that that model revolves around an idea that if we can do stuff make an engaging church service, talk about relevant things to culture, that if we can do it in a place with excellence, that those of us living out our lives throughout the day to day, if we would partner with what's happening with our church that's doing these types of things, that if we would take these friends who trust us, these neighbors who trust us, these family members who trust us, coworkers that trust us, and invite them, then together in environments like this, we could partner together and help them move towards Jesus together. This come and see, this idea was out there, but the reality is that even today, if they were to join you here, the likelihood of a large piece of skepticism of the person standing on this stage would be filtering everything that they hear. These friends and these people that we care for. What got us here won't get us there. So what do we do about this? What do we do? Because I even think about my own experience with my own friends. I've got a friend, he works in the medical field, and he and his wife, neither of them would identify themselves as Christians in any way. They would say, no, we're not Jesus followers, or whatever you want to label there. They have no need for attending a church service on a Sunday morning or really any other time of the week. The Sunday mornings specifically for them it's about family, it's about slow mornings, it's about sitting out on the deck, watching the sunrise, having a cup of coffee, it's about brunch, it's about getting some small chores done to get ready for the week. And as we've had conversations, largely after we've gone mountain biking over the last year, and then we go out and we get some food and drink, and we're having conversations. He's brought up questions, what we would call spiritually significant conversations in that environment, where he asked me things like, how do you believe all this began? And he's asking things like, how do you think all of this will end? And then he's also expressed things like, the reason why I don't ask most of my Christian friends and coworkers these questions is because oftentimes when I bring these things up, their first solution is to invite me to a Bible study. His words, not mine. Invite me to a Bible study, invite me to a church service, or begin debating with me. When all I really want is a conversation with a friend. His words, not mine. What do we do? What do we do in a culture that's changing? I'm more convinced today that what Woody said a handful of years ago, what got us here won't get us there, is truer today and will continue becoming truer tomorrow. Well, here's not what, I know some of these statistics we look at and it maybe causes fear or worry or anxiety inside of us. That's not why I show those things. But how are we supposed to respond? I mean, we can do what I often see is the case. That my tendency is just kind of bury my head in the sand and hope it all goes away, right? Hope it all changes and shifts. We can do what I've seen the church do and over and over again, and that is this kind of whole nostalgic idol that we put up there, that if we could just get back to the good old days, if we could just get back to the way things used to be. That's the goal, that's the goal standard, somehow to rewind time and exist 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, and the way people saw the church and Christianity back then. But the reality is, when I look at the last 2,000 years of church history, when I look at the church throughout the New Testament, that's not often how I see God lead and build his church. It's not often how I see God relate to the world around. In fact, oftentimes when the church says, you know what, we're gonna do things the way that we've always done it, when I see the church throughout human history, throughout the last 2,000 years say, you know what, that we're gonna try to rewind and do things the way that we used to do it, it doesn't usually end up turning out well. What got us here won't get us there. The culture around us is shifting and changing. So what do we do? Well, our mission as a church has been helping people follow Jesus. And we believe that. We still believe that is our mission, is to help people follow Jesus. But it's really the how we go about that we've been trying to kind of move towards and slowly begin to experiment with, and then ask God all along the way, God, is this a part of the future you have for us? And one of the things he's led us to as we've moved through this and helping people follow Jesus is to really focus on the how. Helping follow Jesus. So we've added to kind of really our mission as a church is helping people follow Jesus by equipping disciples to make other disciples. Our mission is still helping people follow Jesus. It's the how that we're going. God, what does this look like in this season? By equipping disciples to make other disciples. Now, this is a good time to kind of pause and ask the question, what is a disciple? At least, what is Blue Ridge's definition of disciple? Because disciples isn't a term that we use often. So something we've introduced that if you've been attending here over the last handful of years, you've seen, we've brought out our definition, what we believe God has asked us to do to make disciples who make disciples. And that is this, it comes from Mark 1:17. This is Jesus' invitation to some of his earliest followers. And he says this, Jesus said to them, follow me and I will make you become fishers of men. You see, from that, our definition of a disciple is this. A disciple is someone who's following Jesus being made like Jesus, and who's joining Jesus on his mission. A disciple is someone who's following Jesus, who's doing the things that Jesus did. Jesus was baptized, we get baptized. That Jesus embraced spiritual disciplines, things like prayer and solitude and scripture and things like that. So we do that. We imitate Jesus. We're imitators of who he is. We do what Jesus did. Now, but it's not just about imitation, it's about transformation. And that's why we say a disciple of Jesus is someone who is being made like Jesus because of his spirit inside of us, that we are being transformed to look more and more like him. It's what sanctification is called. It's what we can't do for ourselves. Only God can do it in us. It's that the outside of us reflects the inner part that is true, that the fruit of his spirit, the spiritual gifts, the healing that's taken place on a spiritual level is happening in us and out of us through the things in the past that we went through, both the things that we chose for ourselves and didn't choose for ourselves. That we're being made like him through the power of his spirit inside of us. And finally, that we're joining him on his mission, that no matter who we are, no matter we're extroverted or introverted or whatever personality type you are, whatever personality test you took, that all of us, if we are a disciple of Jesus, have a part to play in his mission, and he's inviting us to play that part. A disciple is someone who's following Jesus, being made like Jesus, and who's joining Jesus on his mission. So with that definition in mind, we go back to helping people follow Jesus by equipping disciples to make disciples. And we believe that this mission embraces both the Matthew 28 Great Commission and what we see in verses like Ephesians 4, this whole idea of equipping. What do I mean by that? It says this, Matthew 28 says, "Then Jesus came to them and said, 'All authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age.'" You see, the missional mindset doesn't change. This is not, while God leveraged the Come and See model through Blue Ridge for a season, we believe he's transitioning us fully into this go and tell. And it's a go and tell that's been there from the very beginning. From the very beginning in the launch of the church, it's been about followers of Jesus going and telling. It's not just for some super followers of Jesus, some super Christians, but for every single one of us who are his disciple. We're invited to play a part, and that's what Ephesians 4 talks about. It says in Ephesians 4, "So Christ gave himself the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors, and teachers." Oftentimes what we in our culture think of as the paid professionals, that wasn't the intent, but that's often where we go. But then look what he says, even if we take that approach, okay, there's the paid professionals. What are their role? To equip his people for the works of service. To do the equipping so that all of us collectively of the body as a whole can live out Monday through Saturday the works of the service, not just on Sunday, as we go through being his church. So go back to our definition here, or our mission, helping people follow Jesus. How? By equipping disciples to make other disciples. And it was with this idea of equipping that if you were here a couple years ago, we started playing with what we do here on a Sunday morning. We started asking God, what do you want this to look like differently than what it's been? If it's true that what got us here won't get us there, we started looking at what does that look like to equip? And you guys saw us start to experiment with tables and go, God, is this what you desire for us? And what you hear us say, if you're here every week, you hear us say that as we've taken this journey, we've seen that there's this part that community and connection with one another is going to play in equipping, that there's this part that learning that moves just from listening to someone talk at us to starting even in small ways, even if it's not a lot, because this is just the beginning. What we're doing here on Sunday morning is not the whole thing. It is an intro into this idea, but to begin engaging with, opening up scripture together in community, to discuss things, to have spiritually significant conversations, even if it's just for a few moments. Why? Because you've heard me say it over and over again. If we can't do that here, where it's a relatively safe environment, because the vast majority of us at the very least are at least spiritually interested. So in one way, the vast majority of us here are in one way at least open to the idea of Jesus. and all of this to the whole idea of those of us that are fully convinced. If we can't begin those types of conversations here, we will never carry with us what we need to do it out in a world that's growing more and more oppositional. A culture that's changing more and more rapidly in our Monday through Saturday. And so we've began that, and while going forward, we're gonna continue in this, and going forward, we're gonna tweak, because guys, we're kind of the tip of the spear when it comes to a church our size trying this. So there are things that we go, we just don't know. But again, it goes back to that heart that I first fell in love with Blue Ridge in. The fact that Blue Ridge at the time was willing to go, you know what? Let's look to the unconventional, the non-traditional, and see what God may show us. Not that we're gonna get everything right every time, but we're gonna see what God may show us. And I love that. That's what I first fell in love with. So we're gonna continue tweaking and experimenting, but also it's not just Sunday mornings. And Sunday mornings serve as a visual reminder that we aren't the church we used to be, that what got us here won't get us there, that we're not going back to the way we used to do things, that we're looking forward to the place that we believe God is taking us. But it's not just the tables, and it's not about the tables. Woody's big on this. He's saying it's not about furniture, okay? This isn't about tables, it's about the community. It's about learning. But we think about even the subject matter that we've been looking at. We come out of like Galatians that we just came out of, where we've been looking at the gospel. What is the true gospel? Because what we're doing in Galatians is equipping ourselves with the tools that we need to understand the grandness and the scandalous nature of grace, so that we can live from the freedom, so that we can live Monday through Saturday differently and invite people into something differently in the real world. Even the series we're going to next, it's gonna be in 1 Peter. Where we're looking at this lens, how do we live out our faith differently in a world that's growing more and more skeptical and opposition, living in opposition to who Jesus is, to his church and the gospel? How do we do it well? And it's about equipping ourselves with what we need, not just for Sunday mornings, but for the rest of the week. Because here's the deal. We believe while Sunday mornings were the first change, it's far from the last. And really moving forward, we don't believe while tweaking Sunday mornings, yeah, that's great and everything like that, but we really believe the next major shift is the Monday through Saturday for us. The next major shift is Monday through Saturday. That how we as followers of Jesus are playing the part that he's invited us to play. And so a couple years ago, we introduced this phrase, dreams and visions. And it comes from this passage where Peter, he's speaking to the church. The church is gonna launch this day. For those of you who know the scriptures, this is the day of Pentecost. And he quotes from the Old Testament, and he says this: "In the last days, God said, I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters, they will prophesy. Your young men will see visions. Your old men will dream dreams." Now in that, some of us go, well, that sounds kind of weird in this. But here's what we mean by that. Here's what I believe in part Peter meant by that. Meant by this is that in the age in which we are in the church, because God's Spirit is inside of us, as we saw through our study, even in the book of Galatians, that every person who has a relationship with Jesus has his Spirit inside of them. Because of that, because of him who's there, he speaks, or he guides us, he leads us, he teaches us, he reminds us of what Jesus taught, and he speaks to us. And part of the speaking to us is we believe his Spirit revealing to us, each individual as disciples of his, the unique part that we have in his mission. Because remember, as disciples, every single one of us have a part to play in his mission, joining him on that mission. And that means we all have unique roles. And so we think about this idea of dreams and visions. Other church traditions may just call it callings and promptings. But the idea that his Spirit is living and active inside of us and speaking to us and guiding us and showing us the part and the ways in which we can join him in his mission. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about dreams and visions. And these dreams and visions, some of them may be large and grand, but here's the reality. Here's what I need you to hear. They're often not. The dreams and visions are often not these large, grand things, but actually have to do with the small everyday and the intentionality he's inviting us to take in the places he's already has us, with the things he's already given us, and with the people he's already surrounded us with. living intentionally different with the places he's already placed us, the things he's already given us, and the people he's already surrounded us with. What do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? Well, when I think about these dreams and visions that change our Monday through Saturday, what I think about like my friend John, who he has this dream and vision Monday through Saturday of God using him to affect his neighborhood, the place in which he lives. And so John, he regularly takes his dog out to walk, but it's not just a normal dog walk. He goes out there and he just prays for his neighborhood. That's what he does. He's this dream vision that God, you want to use me some way to affect people's lives. So he prays intentionally for his neighbors by name and those he meets along the way and the needs that they have. And he would say his wife, Debbie, is better at this next part, but he and Debbie, they move together towards meeting practical needs as God brings them up, how they can serve their neighbors in that type of relationship. That's a dream and the vision that God has given him for his neighborhood. But it's not that God has given us all the dreams and visions for our neighborhoods. Dreams and visions are different. We all have unique parts to play. I think about my friend Joyce. Among other things she does for a living, she's a Mary Kay salesman. And Joyce believes that the dream and vision God has given her is that every woman who she gets to serve through Mary Kay, she gets to help them see and experience the way that Jesus sees them. I think about my friends Angie and Candy, who have this dream and vision Monday through Saturday, that they believe that God is inviting them to play a role in a small group of young followers of Jesus, female followers of Jesus, to help them, that young in their faith, new in their faith, and help them follow Jesus well Monday through Saturday. I think of my friends Andy and Patricia, who for years have been living out this dream and vision for marriages to be different, not just on a Sunday, but throughout the rest of the week. I think about Brian and Christy, who God put a dream and a vision for the town they grew up in, Alta Vista. And so because of that dream and that vision that God's given them for the people in Alta Vista, they'd made the hard choice to leave this community of faith, Blue Ridge, to join a small group of followers of Jesus in a home down there so they can be more intentional Monday through Saturday in making disciples in Alta Vista. I think about my friend Mark, who was relieved to find out that a dream and vision can be about your family. It can be about your kids and your spouse, and who has expressed to me on multiple occasions that is the dream and the vision that God has placed on him to help make disciples in his own home. I think about Chad and Millie in Bedford, who saw a need as they looked at tables, that people just wouldn't connect on a Sunday morning, but that they would connect and they would have a place to invite people the rest of the week. So they took this small little group they had and they just started inviting whoever would come. And that group has grown and grown and grown because they have a dream and a vision there in the Bedford community to have a place for people to connect beyond just a Sunday morning. I think of a friend named Jan, who her and her husband live on a piece of property here close to our new London campus. And she believes that God's given her a dream and a vision for Monday through Saturday for women who will not step foot into or would be unlikely to come to Blue Ridge Community Church, but through things like art and flowers and other events on their property, she might have spiritually significant conversations with, develop significant relationships with. I think about my friend Steve, who leads an HR department locally. And he believes God's called him Monday through Saturday to make disciples in that HR department. I think of two young people, Jason and Caitlin, out the Bedford campus, who they believe they're in the beginning of this, but God is called to purchase a piece of property. There's this dream and vision that this could be a place where people connect, both adults and teenagers, Monday through Saturday. See, here's the reality. Here's the reality. God is inviting each one of us each one of us to play a part in who and what he has next. You see, the future and what we're saying over and over again, the future of Blue Ridge Community Church is not gonna be decided by myself or the elders or Woody, but it's going to be birthed through the dreams and the visions that God is giving each one of us to play the part, big and small, not just on a Sunday, but Monday through Saturday, the rest of the week to reach people that will be skeptical of people like me, to befriend people that may never show up to this building in the hopes that those people would have a life-changing encounter with who Jesus is. What got us here won't get us there. The ways that God worked, as good as they were in our past, guess what? He's not usually in the business of rewinding, but moving forward. We believe the future for us is as we take what we're doing on Sunday mornings and it gets lived out by us more and more and more Monday through Saturday. What's the dream and the vision that God's giving you? Well, how would we even discover this? Well, here's the step as the band comes out. We're gonna wrap up here. I know I'm talking at you guys a lot today. You guys have not been used to that here recently. Here's what I want to invite you to. Next step for all of us to take. There's a prayer experience. And normally when we've done prayer experiences, we do them in person. This is actually gonna be a digital prayer experience. This is gonna start August 25th. There's here at our New London campus, there's gonna be a night of prayer and worship. And immediately following that at 9 p.m., this experience will roll out. What it's gonna consist of is basically an hour-long prayer experience. An hour-long prayer experience where you are basically asking God, what's my part? What part do you want me to play? And so you'll sign up, you go to blueridge.org/prayer experience, you'll sign up for an hour slot. That's your slot. You're gonna receive an email reminder reminding you that that's your slot. And we're gonna try to send out several reminders so you remember that's your slot. And in that, there'll be a link to a YouTube video that we've got to get put together that will guide you through a guided experience for an hour where collectively we're going, God, if this is true, if I have a part to play in joining you on your mission, what's the part you have for me? And maybe some of us recognize it more now than others, but it's a willingness to be open to where he may lead in the future. Maybe you don't know how to sign up for that. You can go out to the welcome centers at both places. They can help you take the next step. The link is live now. But we want to invite you into a part of playing the role that we believe God is inviting you to play in the future of who we are becoming as a church. Would you guys stand with me? And we're gonna wrap up with this song. Jesus, right now, I just pray. I pray right now that you would reveal to us, that you would lead us, our part, and that we would be willing to join you. God, would this move beyond just something we talk about, and it is something that truly affects us in where we live, where we eat, where we sleep, the people we go to work with and schoolwork. Jesus, would you do something new in us? It's in your name we pray. Amen.
You make it easy to love you. You are good and you are kind. You bring joy into my life. You make it easy to trust you. You have never left my side. You've been faithful every time. All I want is you, Jesus. All I want is you. You are the refuge I run to. You are the fire that leads me through the night. I'll follow you anywhere. There's a million reasons to trust you. Nothing to fear, for you are by my side. I'll follow you anywhere. Oh Jesus, you came to my rescue. You are the refuge I run to. You are the fire that leads me through the night. I'll follow you anywhere. There's a million reasons to trust you. Nothing to fear, for you are by my side. I'll follow you anywhere. Oh Jesus, you came to my rescue. You are the refuge I run to. You are the fire that leads me through the night. I'll follow you anywhere. Oh Jesus, you came to my rescue. my place upon that cross. You redeemed what I had lost. Now my whole world's revolving around you. Oh, you're the center of my life. You're the treasure, you're the prize. All I want is you, Jesus. All I want is you. You are the refuge I run to. You are the fire that leads me through the night. I'll follow you anywhere. There's a million reasons to trust you. Nothing to fear, for you are by my side. I'll follow you anywhere. Follow you anywhere. Oh, follow you anywhere. Oh, wherever you lead me, whatever it costs me, all I want is you, Jesus. All I want is you. Wherever you lead me, whatever it costs me, all I want is you, Jesus. All I want is you. Wherever you lead me, and whatever it costs me, all I want is you, Jesus. All I want is you. You are the refuge I run to. You are the fire that leads me through the night. I'll follow you anywhere. There's a million reasons to trust you. Nothing to fear, for you are by my side. I'll follow you anywhere. Follow you anywhere. Oh, follow you anywhere. Oh, follow you anywhere.
And so, Jesus, we sing lyrics like that. Would that truly be our heart, to follow you anywhere you would lead us? Would you reveal it to us, our part in your mission, the unique dream and vision you have for us? Would you do that? It's in your name we pray. Amen. Love you guys. See you next week.